彼らは飼いならされた象を戦いに導き、王は飼いならされた象に乗る。飼いならされた者は最高の人間であり、黙って虐待に耐えるものである。すべての条件付けられたものは無常である。これを知恵を持ってみれば苦しみから逃れることができる。これが浄化への道である。
Let me just get this out of the way. I am a huge fan of Souls-likes. But when you hear the word Souls-like, you'll probably think of, little-known games like Dark Souls or Bloodborne. But have you ever heard of a Souls-like called Kingsfield? Kingsfield is an RPG that was created by FromSoft on the PlayStation 1. Now, Kingsfield is a type of RPG that is called a dungeon crawler. Now, you may ask, what is a dungeon crawler? Well, let me go ahead and tell you. A dungeon crawler is a video game subgenre that was rooted in tabletop RPGs, where the main character is navigated through labyrinths filled with monsters and caves and castles. The most popular and most picked dungeon crawlers ever picked are video games such as the Diablo series and, most importantly, the tabletop RPG known as D&D or Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I don't think I have to tell you exactly how important Diablo and Dungeons & Dragons is on the dungeon crawler or RPG community. It really speaks for itself when everything that we all know about RPGs comes from these two games. From Dungeons & Dragons' role-playing mechanics to Diablo's gameplay and influential stories, it is no surprise that many games that we have ever made in our human existence have such an impact on a genre. But what if I tell you that there's a game out there that actually influenced the dungeon crawling genre in a super weird way, that it kind of made its own thing? And I know this is going to sound weird, but listen for me for a moment. Now, I don't think Silent Hill 1 needs any introduction. It is one of the most important and most vital survival horror games ever created on this earth. I know it's kind of strange to say, comparing a dungeon crawler to a survival horror game, but they both kind of fit really well with each other. I mean, think about it. Henry here obviously went through different dungeons and weird scenarios filled with monsters to upgrade himself and to find Cheryl. Well, let me think about it for a second. What if you combine the two and create a brand new thrilling experience that combines a dungeon crawler with survival horror elements that elevate the gameplay and make everything just much more terrifying? And also add a new twist or two that makes everything feel different than other types of dungeon crawlers or survival horror games. But let me tell you something. What if there's already a game that's like that already exists right now? Labyrinth of the Demon King is a survival horror game that combines the dungeon crawling aspects of Kingsfield into a Silent Hill kind of experience, while also setting it in the real life location of feudal Japan. It is a game that I've been enjoying a lot recently that my friend Jeremy has gotten me into by gifting it to me on Xbox. And yes, I am a freeloading man who lives off of his friends. JK. You can find the game on most platforms such as Xbox, PlayStation, Steam, or Switch. But I will put a disclaimer here for the disturbing imagery that you're about to see into this game. If you suffer from, any sort of mental illness or thoughts of, doing things that you're not supposed to, definitely just leave this game off for right now. And, play Animal Crossing or something. But anyway, let's get into it. Now, despite the combination of a Souls-like dungeon crawler with survival horror, I was actually genuinely surprised how well it worked. But it does make sense on the grand scheme of things, especially since of how much these two genres actually fix onto each other. Like finding secret passages or finding things to upgrade yourself. Both these genres feed off of each other with different types of elements. You can definitely tell by looking at the graphics and looking at the gameplay that the game was definitely heavily inspired by early PlayStation 1 graphics. The era of video games where survival horror was just starting. From the survival horror elements of Silent Hill to the Kingsfield level immersion that you ever feel while following through the hallways, it definitely just blends everything together, and I really love it. It just makes sense, and it just makes everything just feel right. Hell, even the menus are filled from a bygone era survival horror, reminiscing on something way back then. And it just makes me feel nostalgic. The pixelated PS1 graphics just really works well with everything. I mean, look at this cutscene. The darkness feels intimidating, the hallways feel light, and the doorways remind me of everything Resident Evil's ever done. And the fantasy elements remind me, exactly why I love dark fantasy. And the environment feels so claustrophobic that you don't even know when the next monster is going to come out and try to grab you. And the monsters themselves feel beautiful and terrifying. But the point is that the game feels intimidating and scary. And that's what I love. Even the NPCs, in their own safe way, kind of just feel terrifying to look at and make you insanely uncomfortable. The game also has a brilliant soundtrack that you can find on YouTube. Let me give you an example of what it sounds like. Now, there's plenty of squeaky floorboards or weird voices coming around the corner, but that's what makes the game just feel so ambient and beautiful and strangely addicting while being so scary. It's deliciously creepy, but also satisfying to hear those visual cues while going down hallways. But besides the soundtrack, let's talk about the gameplay. Just like every other survival horror game, the majority of what you're going to be doing is solving puzzles and killing monsters, and exploring dungeons to find secrets and items. The aesthetic and tension of this game just feels different from a lot of other scary games. The calm sounds of the rain and the chills just feel different from fighting monsters. And it feels different from what you usually do in the game, which is, again, fighting monsters. The game does a lot of different things than a lot of other survival horror games by making it to where there's really not really any jump scares, or does what, Outlast does and make it to where you're completely defenseless. There were still plenty of times where I felt distressed or, too immersed when I was playing, and I get scared by somebody jumping out of the corner and attack me, or me feeling like I'm defenseless because I run out of items. Now, to keep you on your toes, there is a stalker type of enemy that does follow you if you get too comfortable into one area, but he's fairly manageable because he usually gets stuck on pieces of environment, but other than that, he does deal a lot of damage. Now, the game's combat is a lot alike a lot of other survival horror games where you just go up and hit people, but this game does things a lot differently by having parries, kicks, and other types of moves, which monsters can also do onto you to block your attacks. There's also a really cool save system and a way to really upgrade your health, just like a lot of other places. The combat is pretty much methodical, with a fair amount of punishment to really set you on your toes and to teach you how to really play the game, just like what Souls-likes do. For the most part, most of the combat usually hits with 3-hit combos, blocks and parries, and even a heavy attack to deal massive deals of damage, which can be hard to deal with if you're dealing with multiple enemies at once, so it's always smart to always back off and just try to get as little enemies as possible when you're just trying to fight. Which there's also other options for combat, such as the magic system and also range combat. You can also find tricky ways to trick enemies by climbing on top of things, or finding a way to dodge around enemies, or using heavy attacks to get through things. Hitting people in the head also deals massive amounts of damage. Now, when your character does die or gets damaged too much, your character immediately spawns right back to the last shrine that they have prayed at. When you want to equip a weapon, you'll always find it in your survival horror menu, like a lot of other games, and shows you the stats of each weapon, such as damage, stamina, or speed of the weapon, which you can see right here. Certain attack types also have different status effects that you can apply to enemies, such as bleed or poison or blunt damage. Now, just like a lot of Souls-likes, you can also upgrade your weapons to keep them refreshed or to repair them. Now, the thing that you do need to repair it with is also very expensive. You can also find different armors in the world and repair it as well. And you might have already wondered why I haven't talked about the story all too much, and that's because really it's kind of hard to really say. The game story is very encrypted and well put together, but I mean, the game still is kind of fresh on the market, and a lot of people still haven't found out fully exactly what the story is. But the base story is basically you play as a samurai warrior who is getting revenge on their former master who has betrayed their clan in favor of becoming a demon and just pretty much destroying everything. And all the monsters that you do face are people from your clan who are seeking revenge. The game itself is a nice surprise and most definitely different from most genres that I've played recently. And it just makes me feel really good, especially since this was a recommendation from a very close friend of mine. If you haven't yet, please check it out. There's not a lot of videos talking about it, maybe a few, but I have seen a few people, play it. I definitely recommend seeing, Pyrocynical's playthrough, or, Charlie's, or, Moist Critical. But it's still a fun game to play and definitely terrifying, especially if you love history as much as I do. But again, if you haven't yet, check it out and subscribe to the channel. I have more updates and videos for you coming up soon. Please, for the love of God, just check it out. But anyway, have a nice day and good night, everyone.